Greetings and salutations, citizens. This is Wolfphototech, and here we are with another delightful little video. If you enjoy any videos that I produce or are interested in any topic, go ahead and watch any of the videos related to that topic and leave a like on that video and share it. And I'll keep in note the activity of those videos and may focus more on those that subject or that series of games more in the future. But anyways, here is Mutants and Masterminds third edition from Green Ronin. I don't know why I said 4th edition. Mutants and Masterminds is built off of the D&D 3.5 engine, or the D20 engine. This happens to be what's referred to as the Deluxe Heroes Handbook. And there's a really good reason why it's referred to the Deluxe Heroes Handbook. By the way, it's number 5510. This is effectively the core rulebook for Mutants and Masterminds, even though it says Deluxe Heroes Handbook, as that is rather indicative naming convention for a book that's focused towards players. However, this book also is a basic game master book, because there's also a section on the very back of the book on game mastering, which is chapter 9. But generally, overall, Mutants and Masterminds has a really deep table of contents, and it's for a very good reason. It's also a very well thought out table of contents, as it goes down to not just simply the chapters and the various other the main sections of those chapters, but also many of the basic topics within the chapter. So you can easily find various mechanics just by going to the table of contents. And if you don't want to go that route, you also have the index in the back. So first and foremost, it's actually a very well worked out book. You have the really nice introduction. Really like the art style here. You got a nice diversity, a nice variety of characters in the artwork. There's very few pages where there is no artwork on the page, so it's always nice. Chapter 1 is the basics, which goes over all the basic stuff. There you have the ranking system and the points tied to the mechanics of the system and gameplay, difficulty class, etc., etc. If you know the Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 edition, you have like 60-ish% of this game system down. The main difference is that there is actually truly no such thing as truly classes in this system, and there is no true regular class progression. However, as you build your characters out, you basically use a modified version of the feat system to build a character. You gain flaws, advantages, disadvantages, and you build out your character as such. Now, it is important to note that you do have basic concepts or categories of characters, such simply referred to as hero archetypes, and it goes over in this chapter, which is chapter 2 of the basic character construction, your PowerPoints system, which basically determines power level of the characters in this game system. You have motivation, chosen complications, etc., etc. There's counterbalancing mechanisms in the system for making your characters more powerful by adding more disadvantages or complications to your system. There's a basic information on increasing character level. Now, this is where you're going to get thrown off a little bit. You will start to think that this is basically a class system, which is in fact not the case. This is actually a basic categorization system where there's basic archetypes in superhero comics of various characters, and all this is doing is giving you examples of those archetypes, like the superhero that uses a battle suit, the superhero that is a construct, a crime fighter type superhero, which has basically no superpowers. He's just a really tough dude or dudette. You got energy controller people. You got gadgeteers, people who make a lot of gadgets. It's for all kinds of situations. You might actually have crossover between these different categories. Up here is the power level score of power level 10. So all the stats are calculated out of the power level scale with the power points. You got the martial artist, you got the mimic, you got the mystic, you got the paragon, powerhouse, psychic, shifter, speedster, warrior, weapon master. And then you have the in-universe superheroes in the system with their character sheet examples right here, and so forth. Now, you don't necessarily have to build exactly to this. You can mix gadgeteer and battle suit. You can mix energy control and gadgets, stuff like that. You can go through the whole system. It just gives you examples of doing so. Now, a lot of people had difficulty constructing characters, and quite frankly, I would probably have a lot of difficulty constructing a character in this system because it's a lot of little components you snap together to get various effects. You tie it together. So that's why they later released the basic Heroes Handbook, which basically turns everything into templates, and you just basically modify those templates for your character, as opposed to literally constructing a character from scratch with this version of the system. So if this one, the Deluxe Heroes Handbook, is a little too complex for you, there's the basic Heroes Handbook, which is the more simplified, more class version of the system. Yet again, you got elemental abilities and such, etc. You got disadvantages and flaws that are tied into these abilities. So adding stuff, you have to like take a disadvantage or a flaw to gain back points to balance out something else and somewhere else. There's just general categorization. You can actually just mix and match all kinds of crazy stuff. This is a system that is very much in line with someone who wants to really customize and tweak out a character. However, there is a lot of bits and pieces in this system that can result in some confusing situations. So this is obviously a system that will take time for people to really build into. And obviously, the easiest option is to always start with a low power level score, power point game with heroes that are really basic abilities that are really simplified in scope. But as you go on and play, you can bring the power points up and you can actually build crazier and crazier characters. Now, this is one really long section on building characters with various abilities. Then you go into chapter 4, which is skills, which is the skill system like running, swimming, close combat, etc. You put various points into such things and you build up your character and you do really cool things from that. And skills are more in line with characters who don't have powers but are really good at tinkering with things or deducing things, etc., etc. This goes more into the advantage section, chapter 5, which basically gives you little benefits for various other things that just tack on top of what you got. And then when we go through this whole advantage section, you got advantages for equipment and invasion, etc., etc. We eventually get to chapter 6, which is powers. which basically gives you the range on your fire attacks and the duration and countering effects, etc., etc. And this is actually a fairly thick chapter right here in itself because it actually requires a lot. Oftentimes when you take a power, you often get flaws out of that. I said that earlier in the book. Chapter 7 is gadgets and gear. Basically a mech. So forth. Some vehicles, bases of operation, various constructs. Action and adventure section, chapter 8. Goes over initiative, actions, challenges, the challenge system in the game, and so forth. And this is like the intermediate section between the game master and the players, as it basically works out the mechanics. This is a very nice diagram right here of no cover, partial cover, and total cover. As I said, there's every so many pages, there's typically some artwork for some characters. You got chapter 9, remember, as I said before, the game mastering section, which basically goes over the game mastering mechanics. And then we go a few more pages in, and after a while we get to Emerald City. Now this whole back section of the book, starting with this Emerald City section, or off the tail end of the game mastering section, is basically setting stuff. Giving you various locations in a given city, noteworthy characters that live in those heroes and events, and etc. You also got Freedom City in here, as well as a few other things. You got the glossary, which basically goes over basic terms. And then right back here, you have a reference table for damage resistance matrix. And this is fairly important for your character. The white is no effect. The blue is a -1 penalty. The green is a dazed and -1 penalty. And then the yellow is staggered. And red is incapacitated. And this is basically how the health system operates in this game, because if an effect hits you hard enough, you can go from white through blue into green and then into yellow. And eventually, if you keep getting hit hard enough, you'll go into red and then you're incapacitated. And typically, most characters will not die in the system as it's designed, as far as I understand it. However, if you keep getting hit, you eventually will die. But it's generally meant to be like, oh, you get knocked down, you get back up eventually. So you can get back into the action later on. There's the character sheet right back here. It's quite a simple sheet in itself, which belies the nature of the system being fairly complex. And then you got the OGL 1.0A back here. As I said before, this is based on Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. And then a little advertisement back here. So, this book happens to be around 318 pages. It's actually fairly well laid out. I like the fact that the table of contents is very comprehensive, as well as the index in the back, as well as the glossary as well. So it's not very hard to find any component in the system to get to what you need to know. The complicated part is creating a character and assembling all the characteristics for your powers together correctly, and happen to agree with the game master as to how those interact with each other. That is about the only thing I've known of, talking to various other people, that is really important. That everyone has to start out really simple with your characters and then build up, and you all have to be very careful about constructing all the little characteristics of your superpowers. If this seems to be a little too complex, There is just the Basic Heroes Handbook, which basically he starts you out with basic templates and you modify off of those. And it treats it more like classes, where this is an assembly instructions that give you instructions on how to build entirely custom characters from the ground up. So there you go. I have basically no experience with playing Mutants and Masterminds, so I'm not going to give a score in the sense of this is a firm score. However, my current preliminary score is to indicate that from what I have seen, it is actually exceedingly well worked out and organized in this book. So it should be in that 3.5, 3.75 star range. The only reason why I don't go up to 4 is because this is a preliminary score. And yet again, people have general complaints that this system tends to be on the complex side. However, that generally is the nature of D&D 3.5. It is a very complex system. There is a lot of moving parts, and it doesn't take much to confuse people when it comes to the D&D 3.5 system. However, as I have with experience with the 3.5 system, eventually you'll get to a point where you kind of move along because you're cooking with fire. Because once you get the basic structure of it down in your mind, it just speeds up more quickly, and you can have enough rules and mechanics to cover all variety of situations. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like on it and subscribe, and consider sharing it around. If you have played Mutants and Masterminds, Deluxe, Mutants and Masterminds 1st, 2nd, or 3rd edition, please tell me so in the comments below and tell me what you think of it and any other important details I may have missed or sources of information you have for such system. Thank you very much. I hope you have a delightful day, a nice night, a wonderful weekend, a magnificent month, and see you next time. Ciao.